People judge themselves and their accomplishments all the time. It means that everything's still going on, still alive. When you see things you haven't really seen for a long time, that can be stressful because you're rejudging yourself. And after a few days, you kind of get used to it, and then you think, okay, it's still me, it's all right. I was always interested in art from a pretty young age. I used to go to the public library and take out art books every week or two. I was mostly drawing and painting, but my father had a camera. And then at some point he gave me a beautiful Nikon F. Photography was beginning to be used by then younger artists like Robert Smithson or Douglas Hubler in ways that it hadn't really been done before. And I was very inspired by their work. I realized that I can photograph something that's really happening, but I can also indulge any propensity towards imagining things. Because of my earlier background in painting and the fact that I kind of wanted to be a filmmaker for a while, other art forms informed the way I was looking at photography, which at that time was sort of unorthodox because the orthodox way of looking at the aesthetics of photography was that it was an utterly unique art form and that it shouldn't resemble anything else. I didn't see it that way. Making The Destroyed Room showed me photography can be like cinematography, preparing things to be photographed, collaborating with different people, subjects that don't derive from your immediate experience. All this stuff was transferable out of the cinema into photography because it belonged to photography from the beginning. I was interested in the medium of these light boxes. It had a certain overt vulgarity, which was amusing to someone who was looking for a dissident way into his own work. The light box is about the most non-art photography thing you could use. I'm not a photojournalist and I never saw any evictions taking place, but it struck me as a subject because evictions are dramas. I really got interested in seeing it from far away so you could see it wasn't just one family being affected, it was the whole neighborhood. It would be like one of those Bruegel paintings seen from up atop a hill. There's always an accident that's going to happen. Like, I didn't know there'd be anybody walking up the far alley up there, but there he is. It's a bit like neo-realist filmmaking where you're shooting in the real world and a lot of people who appear in the picture have nothing to do with the action. I mean, they're just there and you hope they don't look into the camera. And that goes against the idea of so-called staging. The term staging is too restrictive. Sometimes I've done literally nothing, and other times I've had to do an awful lot. When I came to make Picture for Women, I was interested in reconstructing this Manet painting that I had seen so many times, the way that filmmakers had remade old scripts or something. In the 70s, performance art was an affronting and exciting phenomenon, and it was often the person themselves that was in it. Some of the first films of Bruce Nauman, where he was just walking around his studio, I think were important. I realized that if there was going to be a photographer in the picture, it should be me. I didn't really have any interest in making self-portraits, but the impulse was still to put yourself in the picture because that's what other people were doing at the time. I've made many dislikable pictures, so once in a while it's nice to find a way to make something that you know you're not going to give people a hard time with. I wanted to make something kind of rhapsodic and open and funny and free. I'd been in a bookstore and I had come upon the book of Hokusai's work, and I was flipping through the plates and saw that particular plate, and it struck me how photographic it was. To find a way to create an instant with 100 sheets of paper in the air was exciting and hard. I began to use the computer or digital imaging. That changed everything because it meant that it was no longer necessary to imagine your work of composition having to come down to one single instant. Pictures by nature suspend narrative. You have to somehow make sense of what it is you're looking at. So I see the viewer as the writer. The viewer narrates. People are telling themselves stories, and the stories connect to them personally, which is why work can mean something to them. We can relate to these things. The space is so harmonious and beautiful, simple, serene, that the contrast with the often angsty pictures is pretty interesting. I like the idea that something dramatic and even disturbing also has its serenity, that you can look at something in a sort of dispassionate way. All that is part of the show, and I like that about it.